Canada's kind of going through a bit of a crisis, unfortunately. A lot of people have to take more jobs to be able to make ends meet. The cost of living is extremely affordable to live in Ecuador. I feel safer living in Quito than I do sometimes in my own hometown.
Canada is changing fast. Rising costs, healthcare struggles, and a growing number of Canadians are looking for a way out. But does leaving actually make life better? Today, I'm talking to Michelle, a Canadian who made the leap and found a surprising new life in Ecuador. We'll talk about the real cost of living, the shockingly affordable healthcare, what it's like to work abroad, and why she says she feels safer in Quito than in her hometown. If you've ever thought about escaping Canada, this interview is for you. Nowadays, especially now in 2025, things are getting kind of heated in North America, and many Canadians and Americans are really dreaming of moving abroad or going somewhere else, but few actually do. What made you take the leap to move abroad?
Well, traveling has always been in my blood, and I sort of dabbled in it in 1999. I went and I moved to Russia for 6 months and did some teaching there. Loved it, but Canada was always my home. So I came back to Canada, got a normal job, bought a house, had all the, the things, the boxes that we check when, our life experiences. I had a leave of absence from my job with the city of Calgary, and I went abroad. I went to Chile and all around South America, and I did volunteer work, and I fell in love with it. And so since then, since 2012, I've been living in Latin America.
But you've been going back to Canada.
Correct.
Pretty continuously, right? Because it seems like you really enjoy living abroad, but you also love Canada a lot, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Canada is my home. Always have a heart for it. Absolutely. But in between that time, I would go back for various life differences and for a little bit of travel. I would go back to Canada, absolutely. But things have changed.
But you aren't living in Canada now, right?
No, I'm currently living in Ecuador.
So you're currently in Ecuador, but you've gone back to try and live in Canada, and it just hasn't worked out.
Correct.
How many times did you go back to Canada since you've been living abroad?
Since this time with Latin America, at least 4 or 5, 6 months at a time.
You've just never been able to convince yourself this is the place for me, huh?
No.
What do you love so much about Ecuador, and why did you decide to go live in Ecuador and work there in your job?
Well, I'm a teacher by trade, and I was traveling around Ecuador, and at that time I was living in Chile. But Chile it was time for a change, and I came to Ecuador and I absolutely adored it. The people were so kind, so welcoming. The cost of living is extremely affordable to live in Ecuador. A lot of the Latin American things that I love are there. The closeness with people, the interesting food, the different culture. All those things are part of living there. So I made the leap to move. And it's 2 years now that I've been living in Ecuador. I'm a living, breathing example of being able to say that somebody at my age where, a lot of people would think, oh, I can move abroad, but they think, oh, I'm past that age. I'm not in my 20s or my 30s anymore. It's still possible.
What it's like being a teacher or having a job in Quito, Ecuador.
Sure. So, of course, part of the process is getting a visa, a working visa. My school was very helpful, and I think
What school do you work for?
I work for Liceo Campo Verde. It's in a very nice area of Quito, very safe, very secure school. So they helped me through a little bit of the process. But of course, there were logistics that needed to be taken care of. I had to get a police check from Canada. I had to get my degree apostolized.
So how did you find this job at this school?
So a big help. In Facebook, there are a lot of expat groups that I've joined. There are lots of contacts in there. A lot of the jobs can be by word of mouth, but I got mine through a friend that saw the job posting and sent me a link, sent me and said, "Hey, Michelle, look at this. This would be right up your alley." I applied. I had my interviews. I had my open class, and I was given the job.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I know not everyone wants to be a teacher in Ecuador, but for those that are interested in getting a bit more information, can you give a bit more of the details, like what What is a typical salary? Do you have
Sure.
to pay like taxes on them? What benefits do you get?
In general, for an expat like myself, the pay is very, very, very comparable. So the cost of living is less in Ecuador. I make what, 1,800 US a month, but I also get a lot of benefits. I get free transportation to the school. I get lunch with the school. I get an extra, every company has to pay their workers 2 extra salaries per year. I get a flight home. So there's a number of, so it actually ends up, and my expenses, all said and told, are really only about $530 a month. Not including food and extra things. So very, very affordable, less than the, 33% that we should be paying.
So let's talk about healthcare because that's just a topic
Absolutely.
that Canada is very popular about. And
Very
also,
much.
I mean, Ecuador, some people think the healthcare is bad, but then when you talk to people that actually go to these places for
Right.
healthcare, they're like, no, it's amazing. It's one of the best in the world.
Well, it's an unfortunate thing, but right now parts of Canada are kind of going through a bit of a healthcare crisis. Population growth has made it really very challenging in the healthcare system. The healthcare system in Ecuador, I consider quite amazing. There are, of course, 2 tiers. There's the public health and there's the private health. Public is just included in the fees that I pay, but I go to private ones and I get service extremely quickly, and very, very good service. I've had to go see doctors a couple of times here since I've been living in Ecuador, and it's immediate, it's effective, and it's very cost effective, even if you did not even have insurance.
So there's a public option, but you have the private option, right?
The public would be free. So if you came here even as an expat, technically you can go to
But you probably would have to wait for those.
Right. And those you might have to, for tests and stuff, you would have to wait.
So comparing the public option in Ecuador with the public option in Canada,
Right.
You'd say it's a pretty similar amount of wait time, or it's different? How is it?
I would say it's probably pretty similar. I think Canada's probably longer, especially if you're looking to go to see specialists. If you have an acute emergency, like if you have a heart attack, the healthcare system is amazing in Canada. But if you have hips or knees or something that's not so urgent, you can wait up to 2 years. And Canadians know this, and it's a very unfortunate thing.
So for people that need just general care that's not super urgent, it's really bad in Canada because you have to wait forever. How was that in Quito?
Very, very simple. So the one thing with Canada right now, there's a shortage of doctors. So a lot of people have to even wait to be able to get a family doctor, that's a very unfortunate thing. Very simple to get a doctor in Quito. You can go on to various websites, make an appointment, done, or you can actually go to these clinics and I just get service, or it's like maybe 1 or 2 days that I have to wait.
And these are at the public.
No, those would be the private.
You have most of your experience at the private hospitals, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
because it's very affordable to be able to go to the private hospitals.
So overall, you pay per year. It's about $2,000 more or less, a little bit less than $2,000.
Yeah, even less than that.
And what do you pay on top of that, like the deductibles or the extra costs? What do you think would be on top of that?
Yeah. So with my insurance, I pay $10 to go see any doctor. That can be a heart specialist. That could be any of the doctors. $10.
Breaking the bank here, right?
It's like, here you go. If you don't have insurance, it's $25, more or less. And you're seeing a doctor and you're getting service right away. And the difference is, of course, in Canada, Canadians know, we only have the 1-tier system. We only have the public health system. There are no private options, but we pay for it in our taxes. Our taxes are higher.
How was your quality of life living in Quito?
It is, I have an amazing apartment, has a pool, a gym, sauna, and it's extremely affordable to be able to live there.
What's the price of your accommodation?
Yeah. So I pay $490 US, but I am living currently in one of the top 5 neighborhoods of Quito, and it's a city of 8 million people.
What kind of accommodation is this? Is it a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom type of?
It's a 1-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. Yeah. There are definitely cheaper options. You can find places for $250, $300 US to live, extremely affordable. And those are generally in safer areas as well. My expenses, it's $10 a month for my phone bill and $7 for lighting. So of course, Canadians will know that right now the electricity bills are $200-300 in Canada. And I pay
That's pretty
less than
high,
10.
huh?
I pay less than
Is
10.
it because of the winter or just the cost of
Cost of
electricity
living,
is way
cost
higher?
of living is gone.
Back in Canada, how much were you paying?
Oh, well, it's been a while since I
How
mean,
much
right
would
now,
you pay if you moved back
right
now?
now, that particular quality of place, that would be a minimum $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's
Plus, not including expenses. So
gosh, 200 on top of that, 300, 400, whatever.
2, 3 for electricity and heat, because of course we
Internet.
Canadians, internet is
water.
phone is one of the most expensive in the
Phones are
world.
expensive.
Water,
Yeah,
you're
right.
looking at 2,500.
So let's talk about food then, because
Sure.
food is another part of your budget. How much do you pay?
You know, the cost of food, of course, as soon as you get some products that are from like Canada or United States, those tend to be a little bit more expensive.
Like-
I would say, because I'm a single person, it's about $200 a month.
And do you buy mostly local, some local, all local?
Almost well, everything's local.
If you're enjoying this interview and you're interested in seeing more content like this, you can check out my playlist called the Expat Interview Playlist, where I have been interviewing people from Guatemala all the way down through Central America and now here in South America.
You know, that's another thing we didn't talk about. People love their pets. They love their dogs. They love their cats in Ecuador. And it's not difficult to bring your animals.
You don't have a dog, right? You have a cat. No. A lot of people bring like their dog to like the I'm not sure like the supermarket, but to malls. I don't know.
The malls, the dogs. There's always dogs walking around in the malls. Oh yeah,
We're here at a park. There's dogs everywhere.
We're aware of that.
Pooping right in front of signs that say "Pick up your dog's poop." They didn't. How did you get your cat?
That's another funny story. We won't. I found her in the street when I was living in the Dominican Republic.
In the Dominican. So that's what I wanted to know is, how difficult is it to bring the cat into Ecuador and internationally?
Simple.
What did you do?
Well, I had a very good vet that can help you walk through the paperwork. You have to have, that was a couple of years ago. You have to have like a health certificate. You have to have up-to-date vaccines for your pet. And it's really not much more than that.
How much did you spend in total for that?
My advice to people that are wanting to bring their pets, completely doable. But I would say maximum $200-300. Plus your ticket to put the pet in the flight is going to be the most expensive.
So ballpark, we're saying $200-400.
Yeah, you know what? You could do it under $500 for sure.
Recently, Ecuador has been kind of a difficult thing to understand because there's been some dramatic news articles happening, and people are really confused about Ecuador. I'm sure in Canada, back in America. I mean, my family, my friends. Actually, I had some friends that wanted to visit me in Colombia, and I said, no, I'm leaving Colombia actually in a couple of weeks. So when I told them to visit me in Ecuador, they said that I'm not comfortable with that. The news things. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I haven't been there since 2020, so I don't know how it is. But after I came back again to 2024, I mean, it's 2025. It's completely safe to me, at least. And I was like a bit surprised at how the media has covered this. What do Canadians completely misunderstand about Ecuador?
Media loves to put different spins on things, right? And unfortunately, Ecuador kind of sometimes gets a bad rap. One of the biggest misconceptions is that it's completely unsafe. Albeit there are a couple of areas in the country that I probably wouldn't visit on a regular basis, but I feel completely safe in the city. And certainly, even with the increased crime in Canada, I feel safer living in Quito than I do sometimes in my own hometown.
What's another one?
Well, I think people think that everybody just lives in the Amazon and that it's like 38 degrees Celsius. Not quite sure what that is in Fahrenheit.
100 million?
Yeah, lots. Certainly Quito, the weather is for me, it's very amicable. I almost always wear shorts. The locals get a little bit colder, but we as Canadians,
what's
we're
the
tough.
average lows and highs?
It never gets lower than about 10, and then it's about like 28 is probably about the high.
I think the averages when I was there was like the low 20s in the daytime. When the sun comes out,
right.
It's fantastic. It's perfect
Beautiful.
weather. When the sun comes out, it's a perfect place to be. How much of the population do you think even lives in the jungle? Like
very
5%
very little
or less?
Yeah, it's probably like the equivalent of like in Canada living like north of 60.
Yeah,
there's a portion of the population that live up there.
What is another misconception about Ecuador?
Well, I think a lot of people think that everybody's poor, right? That it's a third world country. Certainly there is poverty that is in Ecuador, but there are many, many places that are just as lovely and as Canada would be, like with apartments and houses and there's areas where you don't even really see that. And Ecuadorians are a lovely people, and they're very family supportive. So you don't see the same degree as poverty right now in Canada. It's very much in your face. Ecuadorians work hard, so you don't see a lot of people begging on the street. You see people selling things on the street, and you can support them by buying their garbage bags or their lollipops to be able to support.
Let's talk a little bit about that poverty
Yeah.
issue, because actually it's a very unique thing in Ecuador. When I went there, especially Quito, you don't see homeless people
No,
anywhere.
very rarely,
And
almost never.
even when I was in Manta, which is a much poorer city, there's no homeless people. And I was like,
Yes,
where are
that's
the homeless?
where are the homeless?
When I went to Guayaquil, I saw a couple, but like we're talking about a city of 2 million or a
Right,
million, whatever it
right.
is. And I mean, we're in Colombia right now.
Right, we are.
Colombia and Brazil are the two countries that I've seen the most homeless probably my entire life.
I'm seeing them all, like traveling around through here. It's a complete 180. I don't see that living in Ecuador, but I certainly saw it when I went back to Canada last July. I had a month holiday, visiting family, vacation. And certainly in Edmonton, I saw it on every street corner, every bus, little hut that you can wait for the bus thing. It was quite shocking and very quite a sad thing to see that in Canada.
So this is something recent, right? It wasn't
Yeah,
really
no,
back
it wasn't
when you were
before.
living 10, 20 years
No,
ago. It wasn't
no.
like that.
I think the recent extreme cost of living increases, Canada's kind of going through a bit of a crisis, unfortunately.
Do you think that has a big push factor for a lot of Canadians? That's the reason why
100%.
a lot of them are thinking of greener pastures somewhere else?
100%, because you can live with a higher quality of life in another country, and still have all the amenities that you would want in Canada without the cold.
What are some other advantages we didn't cover that you really enjoy and you find quite beneficial living in Quito, Ecuador, compared to Canada?
You know, the people are so welcoming. They are a very calm population, like the culture. Very, very kind, very welcoming, very service oriented. You get, I think, what is considered amazing service. And the people are quite welcoming, even with me being an expat. I've made friends living in Quito, and I like that. So it's kind of like a home away from home sometimes.
So you found it quite easy to make friends and connect with people, both local and foreign, in Quito?
Yeah, I have friends on both ends of the spectrum. I have friends that are from Canada and from England and the United States, and then I have Ecuadorian.
How many Canadian friends do you have? Do you have a lot? Pretty big group of Canadians in Quito?
Do you know, I don't think there's a huge group of Canadians in Quito, but at my school, there's two other Canadians that work at my school. So every once in a while, we'll sit at the lunch table and have a good old Canadian discussion, especially right now with all the things happening politically.
And how are people in Canada compared to people in Ecuador?
Well, I think that because the cost of living has gone up, a lot of people have to take more jobs to be able to make ends meet. Less time and availability to be able to visit with people. It's a much more independent life living in Canada, for sure.
Do you think the people in Ecuador are a bit more stress-free compared to the Canadian type of culture?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I absolutely
Do you
think
think,
so.
well, you mentioned that the amount that they have to work to afford living there is a part of it. Are there any other parts of it, of the culture of people being a bit more stressed out in Canada? Maybe the weather?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, the weather. I mean, it's you when it's minus 30 outside or minus 40, and they just had some times of that, it makes it a little bit harder to be able to get out and walk around and sit in a park like we're sitting right here and be able to enjoy the outside. So
I'd like to say thank you so much for watching my videos, and if you want to show support for my channel, please hit that like and subscribe like always. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can buy me a coffee, you can support me on Patreon, and you can also join my channel as a member. That goes to me and really helps me provide all the things that I need in order to make these high quality videos for you guys here in Latin America. Let's get back to the video.
So let's move on to one thing that you really miss about Canada.
You know, sometimes when there's bureaucratic things, I wish it was in my original language. I'm very well versed in Spanish, but it would be nice to be able to do all the bureaucratic stuff with the government in my own in English.
Can you give any suggestions and tips for any Canadians that are thinking, I think I want to leave and maybe Ecuador is a good spot for me?
Well, living abroad now is a much easier time than when I first moved. And in 1999, we didn't talk about that, but I was a teacher in Russia, right? So 1990, there was no Skype, there was no the technology
The internet
methods.
basically was just starting up.
Just starting makes it sound like I'm ancient, right? So I mean, some suggestions, of course, make sure that you've got some like ways to connect with your family in there.
How do you connect with your family?
Well, it's through Skype or there's Facebook Messenger, there's WhatsApp. Everybody in Ecuador uses WhatsApp.
I use WhatsApp for most of my connections. So
me
it makes
too.
starting groups, making sure you have everyone that you want to connect with back home.
Zoom meetings.
Making sure you have that figured out before you go. Do you think it's super important to learn Spanish in Quito? Like, do people speak good English?
The thing when you can speak the language is you can make connections with the locals far more than if you only just know how to say hello. So yeah, absolutely would recommend maybe people could start taking some classes while you're in Canada. I mean, those are available, or at least get onto some apps and learn a few basic words. It goes a long way.
So for anyone that's interested, I actually offer very basic Spanish lessons. I am starting a new class with a new student that just contacted me through my website, genericsworld.net. You can jump on there and contact me and arrange a class. If you want to pick up some 30-minute classes, getting the basics, I'm totally there for you. And Spanish is super important here. I speak fluent Spanish. Obviously, I'm a Spanish teacher, English teacher, Portuguese teacher as well. So any other tips you have before we finish up?
The thing with when you move over to another country is come with an open mind. Come with the flexibility. It's not Canada, but it can be just as good and even better than things are back home.
What kind of groups are you in on Facebook?
Oh, I'm in lots and lots of groups on Facebook. All you'd have to really do is search like Ecuador, expats, Ecuador travel. Many of them will come up. Or Quito, Cuenca, depending on what areas.
Expats.
Yeah, Cuenca. There's a very, very strong, many groups that belong in Cuenca.
How about Canadians in Ecuador?
We have Canadians in Ecuador as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. Which is always that kind of Canadian connection on there for
sure.
And
for anyone that's interested in looking for accommodation, you can actually look for accommodation on Facebook as well, on Marketplace. So you have Marketplace to find out what the apartments look like and the prices, the average prices. You can kind of get your feet wet with information by just jumping on Facebook. It's an amazing resource.
Yep. And there's a lot of local Ecuadorians that their service is to also help expats kind of get settled if they have the bureaucracy to be able to have to deal with, or finding an apartment. They can offer those services too.
Thank you so much for giving all this information, Michelle. It's amazing to be able to get all this good quality input from a Canadian. Our countries are going through some turmoil right now. So, I think having this information now is super, super helpful.
You know what? It just kind of shows that at heart, we're still together, right? If people are considering it, I give the advice, take the plunge. Why not? Worst case, you could always move back to Canada, right? And you might find you actually love it.
You might just love it and stay forever, huh? Who knows? All right. Hasta la próxima.